Outra tagów importanti, mona siagichimbu, healing bunga mana falingo. All right, Hungan. All right, Matsotsoe live stream. All right, Hafade. Inanhusi Michael Luhan Bavakwa. Estigo Nueban episode Fanachu. I am Han Solo Malolo Pogo. That's not true, Giminagai. Giminagai. I am not actually solo today. I bring with me the voices of many people, but I don't have any guests that are live here today. I am fresh off of Festpack, and so as you can see from the flyer here that I am sharing on screen right now, this episode is a special episode. Isenangan siha Yoridza ni Latte gi Museon Bishop gidza Hawai'i. We get discourse, we get sentiments, hinasu sinentisia, sort of a collection of feelings, emotions, thoughts, reflections from around the Latte that are currently on display in the Bishop Museum in Hawaii. And so, Hafide Ta'alu, buenas, wherever you are tuning in from. On Fanachu, we have been talking about the Latte, and we have been talking about the collection, the Marianas collection, the Hornbostel collection that is at the Bishop Museum for quite a while now. 2 years ago, I was part of a group of 6 people that were in the Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Museum Institute that went to Hawaii. We spent a month out there. And through that program, we connected to the Bishop Museum. We saw the Latte that were out there. We connected to the Bishop Museums. We got to see parts of the Hornbostel collection, more than 10,000 artifacts, most from Guam, some from the CNMI, a small fraction from the Caroline Islands. And so we got to see it, experience it. And that really kind of started, at least for me and for others, sort of this journey in which we felt obligated to tell the story of the Latte, to tell the story of this collection, and then to slowly work towards educating, enlightening, and then also on the possible return of these items. And so the Latte ceremony that took place June during Festpack 2024 at the Bishop Museum was a beautiful experience. I want to share a few pictures before we get into some of the statements from it. It was an event that was organized, so it was part of, there was a few different pieces to it. So these are Latte that were taken from the Marianas Islands, the oldest of them taken 100 years ago from Guam, but the largest of them, which is in the center, there was taken from Rhoda in the 1950s. And so the Latte, me and then others such as Nicole Delisle Duenas from the Guam Cultural Repository, me being the curator at the Guam Museum, we were in discussion with the Bishop Museum about the collection of the Hornbostel collection, the Marianas collection in general, but also then about these Latte, about possibly bringing them out and putting them, because they were behind the Bishop Museum for many years, hidden away, not taken care of, neglected in many ways, unknown to many people that worked at the Bishop Museum. And so the discussion was to bring them out so that people could appreciate them and that Chamorros could hold ceremony around them. And the Chamorro community that was out in Oahu, in Hawaii, responded to this call. They assisted with cleaning the Latte, helping to move the Latte, and they organized sort of a ceremony this month around that these images are from. And so we'll hear from one of the organizers, Alyssa Santos, who is a student, a graduate student out at UH Manoa. But as you can see here from this image, hundreds of people gathered. Chamorros from out in Hawaii, but also Chamorros from Guam, Chamorros from the diaspora, Chamorros from the CNMI. It was a huge occasion. There was other Pacific Islanders that gathered in solidarity to show their support for the Chamorro people, but just a massive sort of thing. You can see the Latte here, and just as a reminder, sort of there are three haligi here and three tasa here. The two smaller Latte come from Guam, one from Ipao. This, for example, here is from Ipao. The larger piece comes from Rhoda. And then the other Latte here comes from Aruna. And so people gathered, and for this episode of Fanachu, I was there, and I just asked people after the ceremony was over to kind of share some of their thoughts. And I also took some video that I'll share as well with everybody. And it was an amazing sort of occasion to see people, manhobans ani manamko, everyone kalang pinatsa, mampanatsa na corazon niha nu esti. Some people filled with words, some people at a loss for words in terms of how to express what they were feeling. Some people angry and frustrated, some people hopeful and inspired. It was definitely sort of a transformative moment in a lot of ways. And so I'm thankful for those who are willing to share and talk to me about their experiences. And so I want to then I want to start off. So as I said, the Chamorro community from Oahu, the Hafaday club that's out there, they took the lead in terms of preparing the latte, holding the ceremony. And so Dr. Mary Hattori, Alyssa Santos, Dr. Faye Antalan, they were sort of the main people for the ceremony. And so offered describing their efforts again. And as I said, young and old, manhobans and manamko, people of different generations inspired to connect to the latte. And that's an important sort of thing, because whereas for younger people, it is easier to see the latte as a connection to our past, for the older generations, the latte is something that you may have been taught that you don't mess around with, you don't touch, you don't feel connected to, because it's the Tautumon is going to get you, right? And so even on that day, I had a number of elders ask me, Doc, Professor, Senor, they said, is this okay? Because they wanted to touch the latte. They felt like they were supposed to, that it was an important gesture or statement, but they had also, when they were growing up, they were told not to go near the latte, not to touch the latte, to be respectful from a distance. And so my response to them was that in the past, because of colonization, our relationship to the latte was to be respectful, but from a distance. But now we know that we can be respectful, but we can also reconnect, and we can connect, respect and connect. So in the past, you respected and stayed away, but now respect and connect, and it's okay. But I told them, just you know, don't go using the bathroom around the Latte. I think that's one thing that our elders were right about. Don't do any kitsy kitsy around the Latte. Don't do anything like that around the Latte. Be respectful around the Latte. That's a good rule of thumb. And so I want to actually play for you now. I mentioned Elissa Santos, a graduate student at UH Manoa. And so she was one of the organizers for this. So I want to actually allow her to kind of talk a little bit about some of the work that they did in terms of prepping the ceremony. And then we'll get into some of the voices of the people who were there.
Hey, half a day. Guahong si Elisa Santos ginin Boacan. I'm here for school. I'm attending school at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, pursuing my PhD in history. And I'm here as one of the organizers of today's Latte ceremony. This is really just like a culminating event of all the work that's been done by our communities and generations of Latte protectors who come before us. I know this history has been shared elsewhere, but um, since like the 1950s, right, people have been trying to repatriate this collection that the Latte are a part of, known as the Hornbostel collection. And we really want to remember the generations of folks who have tried to repatriate portions of this collection over time since the 50s. So we who have organized today understand we are part of this larger genealogy or longer genealogy. And we're really just responsible for carrying on that work today, really with the remaining set of um, ancestral cultural creations that are remaining at the bishop. And so the Latte are clearly the largest of that collection. We know the story of their neglect in the back of the bishop, and our role was just simply as students to help clean it, to continue to visit the Latte since then, and then to work with the Kanaka Maoli here and crane operators to relocate them to the front of the bishop and kind of discuss what sort of remaining aesthetic choices right there are for this orientation and what we're calling now the Latte installation. There's clearly been two goals, right? The short-term goal is to was to present them for FestPac, and then the long-term goal is clearly returning them home. So this event was to honor all that work and just bring our communities together. Really treat this as an exchange between two indigenous communities, because as we know, this kind of sets the tone for those to come, right? It's going to serve as a model for repatriation discussions with between the bishop and other indigenous or Pacific communities here on out.
Right. Sujus Masi. Yeah, Sujus Masi Elissa. Again. And so and then I want to give so Elissa then talked a little bit more about some of the work that they did in terms of getting the Latte ready. And so I want to also then what's it called? Estigi. Oh wait, no, Tiano dispensa. Mega na video gini. Honggan. Estigi. Wait, no, Tiano. Dispensa. Yabidibe hutsemeste. I need to close some of these videos. Okay, Estigi. Okay, so here, Nita Ekungok si Elissa Tatlo.
Yeah, to talk about some sentiments around the Latte, it would make sense for me to kind of go through the different stages of the project. At first, it was the Latte cleaning process, and that was really an emotional experience for myself and the other students who had different reactions. For the most part, a lot of us, of course, were expressing feelings of pain and loss because of the state that they were in. But as we continued to um, to clean them and remove the debris, we felt moments of reconnection. What was one of the most beautiful things to witness or to experience was our families were calling us from Guahan and the CNMI to be there on FaceTime with us as we cleaned, and just sharing were offering their blessings while we were cleaning, sharing stories about their Latte interactions back home. And through that, even if some of us are not related, we definitely like gain, so many aunties and uncles in that process, just learning and speaking to each other's families. The Latte cleaning process also again happened over spring break. It was daily. It was for long hours of time with the awesome bishop staff, and it took a toll on us physically, but we had to also prepare ourselves to just check out and to just hold space for each other, to unplug and to continue to talk to each other and make connections with the Kanaka staff who we were cleaning with. We talked about like, pidgin language and sort of like chod talk and exchange stories about like what it was like to grow up in our different island contexts. So we had a lot of like also moments of joy and fun with the broader cleaning staff of the bishop or historic preservation staff of the bishop. So I think another point to bring up is when we think about cleaning the Latte, it's kind of an odd process. Because back home they would be in the jungle, they would be in their natural environments, and the idea of like cleaning them and kind of sterilizing them is a bit bizarre. We actually kind of felt it was a little comical, but we understand the need to transport them bug free and that kind of stuff. All that to say though, I think what was hard was like when we were removing the dirt and we were removing the plants that were growing in the Latte, we realized, some of us realized that we were removing the Aina, of this land, and how the Aina has held through the roots of the plants, through the dirt that was in there. It held pieces of the rock of the Latte together. So really the Aina has carried the Latte in many ways, and we shouldn't dismiss that. And so again, the cleaning process kind of elicited different kinds of emotional responses from the students. With regards to the move, we started at 8 a.m. with protocol and went well into the night at 11 p.m. because every time you rig, you move, and you place a Latte, you must be very careful at watching it, and it was a kind of like an anxiety-inducing experience, right? To have to be very careful in that process, but we nonetheless did it. It was successful, and look at how everything turned out. Um, for me, the real reward has also just been to work with the Chamorro community here. Coming from Guahan, someone not of the diaspora, I think sometimes we take for granted how much we can sort of access our people, our culture, and resources that allow us to be cultural. But here, it's so hard. It's hard to find midzuk, leaves. It's hard to find space to do things for our community and to have these cultural practices. So to have to work with the Chamorro community here to make this happen has been a different kind of experience in mobility, and I extend my love to them so much because of how they were able to help me pull this off, help us pull this off. And it's really a celebration too of them as stewards here in the meantime, and likewise as hosts to our Chamorro families that are coming, our friends coming in, and as temporary hosts.
Sidusmasi Alyssa. Sidusmasi Alyssa. Patoru ibidamo za toru ibidan midzo put in na posible na estina ceremonias yorizani Latte. All right. And so now let's get into I want to get into some of the statements from the people who were there gathering around the Latte. Here's some thoughts from some of them. And and it was interesting because there was people who Chamorros, non-Chamorros, people from Guam, people from the CNMI, all a wide range, And so and it was hard to find people because some people felt overwhelmed by their emotions, some people felt like they needed time to process what they were feeling, and then I never was able to catch up with them again. So hugo fagradesi esti natauto ni munai. muna ilugat, muna idzunay ora niha isinenten niha ihinasun niha. I appreciate it. But so let's I want to so we're just going to get right into it, and then first off we're going to start actually with a parentesu. Si Sarah Antalan, who is tomorrow from Guam but works at the Bishop Museum. And so she's been part of the discussions and around sort of the work that the Bishop Museum has been doing with the Latte, with the repatriation. She's not worked directly, but she's been involved. So even when the Bishop Museum came out to Guam last year, she was visiting island at that time. And so she got to be involved then. And so she's been instrumental sort of in helping guide things out there, because a lot of the discussions we are out here, and so we're out here and they're Mengaigi Siaguatu. And so it was nice for that I got to catch her and then ask her sort of hafi hinasonya hafi sinintenya podestina ceremonias, podestina lati. And so nihita ekumuk.
Okay. For me, it's been such a beautiful time, especially kind of ending with this Latte ceremony because I work here. I work at the museum, and I'm one of the only Chamorros that works here. There's another one, but she was born and raised here too, or not too. I was born and raised in Guam. But it's been really interesting since I first started working here because when I first came here, I witnessed them in the back of the museum and they were all separated and like a lot of people didn't know what they were. They kind of just looked like big rocks and it was definitely very heartbreaking to see. I would say hi to them and I would just wish that they were in a better place. And so I was really excited to hear when the ethnology team came to me and they were like, we're going to put the Latte, we're eventually going to repatriate them, but we're going to put them out in the front so that people can see them and get to know what they are. And, Chamorros can come visit them. And it was I was very happy because I work in public programs, but they included me in a lot of things. I happened to be on Guam, but at the same time they were, so they would invite me to go to all the site visits, and meet with everyone. And they invited me to help clean the Latte and just to touch and be with the Latte, and and so it's been really beautiful, and especially coming to this week, it was nice seeing how all the Chamorros were interacting with it, because like a lot of people, when I first got there, they're like, hey, this looks like Latte, and I'm like, well, I got news for you. Um, and yeah, it was so beautiful to see everyone like give offerings and touch them and just hold space with them and feel them, and they haven't been home in over 100 years, so I'm sure it's nice for them too to kind of see like their people with them. Um, and yeah, and it's very beautiful, and I'm very, very grateful to be here at this time. Jesus Mossy.
Si Diyos masi Sarah, si Diyos masi. Again. Si Diyos masi. And so, put favor, malefadzu lo engen guaha question midzu, engen guafinaisen midzu, pega gi comments, pega gi chat. Um, there will be chance. I mean, this is not a live interview episode like usual, but if you have comments and if you have questions, you can ask them. And then after I'm done sort of sharing the short interviews that I did do, then I'm sure there will be time. And so please feel free to ask, because I know that the history of these Latte, I have been talking about them for quite a while. And Magufzu, I'm very happy to. All of FESPAC, I was at the Bishop Museum, like nonstop. In fact, at the Nesticia, I have like a bracelet for every day I was at the Bishop Museum during FESPAC. I was like at the Nesti, I have like a rainbow shave ice flavor. Gikanaihu. Okay. All right. Sidus Masi Sarah. So okay, let's hear. Oh, so one thing that was very lovely was that when I was at the Bishop Museum for the Latte ceremony, I also got to pick up a copy of Ocean Mother. And so Ocean Mother by Ariel Taitano Lowe, she was there. She was selling copies of her book. And so Hufahandos na kopya, and so Hafit Madzi Hams and si Desiree. She signed 2 copies, one for me and one for Paraiguanaizaku si Desiree. And so I asked sort of Ariel, she's a poet, what are her feelings about sort of the Latte being there in that moment? And so I was thankful that she also shared some of her thoughts.
I would say being here with the Latte now after the ceremony and seeing all the offerings and having our people here, it makes me feel very hopeful. I feel like so much healing is happening just in the knowing that the Latte are here and to be in community with the Latte and with our ancestors who are very much still tied to these really precious cultural like embodied cultural items, right? And I don't even want to say the word items because it's just not quite the right word, but our Latte, right? And I would say compared to earlier in this week when I was able to come with Sarah, the first time I saw them, it was really heartbreaking to see. And what has really given me hope is really all the work to that's been done by like yourself, Senor, and the folks with the museum who from Guam that did the museum training to come and just give them the honor that they deserve. And the next best thing is to see them back home where they belong.
Si Diyos Masi Ariel. And we had Ariel on a few weeks/months ago. I've been in an FESPAC time warp to fit me na kinemprendeku po tiempo. I have no sense of time anymore after sort of being in FESPAC for 10 days or 10 years. Hekwa tisigurudzo. But we did have Ariel on recently, sort of to talk about her book and her poetry. And so please, if you haven't checked out that episode, it was wonderful to reconnect with her. Estaba estudiante ko si Ariel Biba. And so si Zeus Masi. And then let's see here. Oh, let's get into the Perez's now. We've got 2 Perez's. We've got Marie Perez and we've got Tomas Perez. And so nihita ekunguk si Tomas Finet now. All right, Tomas, who attended this. Tomas is in the States, but he was attending the ceremony. Zanimanya, his family was there as well.
Update, si Tomas, sa Seattle, here at FESPAC, and I'm here with the Latte behind me, along with Kamilyoku. Out of all the things that I've been feeling regarding the Latte over here, I think the biggest thing is just reconnection. They were lost for so long and nobody really knew what they were and where they were. And now that all the tomorrows and even other Pacifico people are here to help us celebrate, to continue the repatriation process, it's reconnection. As angry as I can feel, I'd rather us know where they are and know what to do with them and want to bring them back home. So Bulagunaiza for all the Latte that are here and for all the efforts that people have made to bring them back. So mostly love, anger, but it's what's done is done, and now we can only focus about what to do with them now and bring them back eventually. So.
Si Zeus Masi Tomas, si Zeus Masi. Again, I think what I found is that for some people it was an issue of how much do you know about the Latte, and that would affect sort of how much how complicated. Lo few tagwihinay gilin at lata. That's often like in our lives, right? I know things, and the more you know, the more complicated your life is, right? Because for many people, ang gantaditiningot mo, puri historianya, historianiha esticia, people who came into the space and then just saw the Latte and assumed it was just part of some lovely gesture of the Bishop Museum to put out the Latte and put them on display, their experience was that this is amazing and wonderful to have the Latte out here. But then for those who knew that they had been taken, some of them 100 years ago. Then it was a little bit more complicated. And then for those who knew that the Latte had been tima attendi, that they kalang mazutinay, kisantatini edificio, that they had been basically tossed and left behind the Bishop Museum for 40 or 50 years and not attended to. That was then sort of something where the inspiration, sort of the beauty of it, then became even more complicated to draw out, because you know that mas malait it's even more bittersweet, because the beauty of this comes with that history of actually that, yeah. And so that's why, as Tomas was sharing there, you know, he being a little bit more aware, knows that, you know, Bulagwanaidza, he feels it because there were so many people there. It was such a beautiful space, but he knows a little bit of that history too, and it's hard to kind of also let that go too. And so we turn now to another Paris. Megay Paris, gilina lahunay, pagunay sa inobiyahu. Paris lokwi familyan bonyo. Ni kalang natsalagasti. All right, STC Marie Paris. Hunggan sumaski tautagwahan lo sumaska paugu kumaleleo gisanlago.
Okay. Buenas, Goisi Mariana Paris, Hinengwahan, Tatao Chamorro Zan Palawan. But yeah, so I was here today for the Latte ceremony here at FestPac 2024. I know that Senor asked me to talk about my feelings for today, and I was just telling somebody that it's, you know, it's complicated. This month I might cry, but you know, it, it's just hard because it is healing, but at the same time, the whole like feeling of FestPac, right? It's you see so many islands, so many peoples that are so strong and so resilient, and they're so like just incredibly beautiful people, right? But then it's also complicated because we have this history of like displacement and also colonization. And I feel like the Latte ceremony, like what's going on today, that kind of encapsulates what's happening. You know, like this is beautiful that our ancestors were, you know, like lived among these stones and were buried under them, but they were displaced from their home. And it is healing to be here and to have this ceremony with like other Chamorros and other people from the Marianas and other people from Micronesia and the Pacific to celebrate this coming out of the darkness where it was stored. But yeah, it's complicated. But I think overall, I think it's healing. I felt that today, especially when it was a mix of the Malay and also of our people's like songs and prayers and the words from like our Manyanya too. So yeah, yeah. Just
Hunggan, Sidzus Masi Marie. Hunggan, she put it very well there. Hunggan, Giminagat, Maulagni Kinugwao, she put it better than I did in a much shorter and more succinct way. And so Sidzus Masi. Hunggan, I think a lot of people felt that the complicated nature of it, but also that because so many people came together, there was the possibility of healing. But still the history persists. You cannot get away from that history. And so and now I wanted to bring in another voice here. I see Riley. See Riley Taitingfong. Hunggan. It's Dr. Riley Taitingfong. And so hunggan sumasga gid sa San Diego. Let me nangon ratu estige. Hunggan, kumecuentos para dos y Palawan. Hunggan.
okay. Kapade, Guahusi Riley, Titan Fong, Vermilion, Dalalais and Manok, Sumasa Gatsugita, San Diego. But I was here today for the Latte ceremony. It was really beautiful and a really beautiful kind of bookend to the FestPac, which has been just a really amazing tribute to our connectedness as Pacific peoples across Oceania. And I think I had a similar feeling today getting to see everybody who came out for the Latte ceremony. Just that, you know, even when our ancestors and our cultural treasures are away from home, that we always have people from our community who will come out and support and take care of these ancestors. So it was a very emotional gathering. I also felt very hopeful, just seeing, how many Chamorros, how many Micronesians, how many Hawaiians came out to, yeah, just support and be in ceremony and really honor our ancestors here.
Hafide, Guahusi, Olivia Diaz Anderson, Familian Kostet, Mali, Supianu, Gadzagu, Zolga, Zandoma, Swaskazu, Giza LA. Lo, I'm here for FestPac in Hawaii, and we're here at the Bishop Museum with these amazing latte stones. I had no idea that these were even here until like probably a couple weeks ago, and when I found out, yeah, I was definitely really sad and angry that they were uprooted from their homes. But being here today was really moving. It was a very touching ceremony that was Gefpagu, very beautiful, with all of our chants and just the Chamorro community from here as well. So I too am feeling very inspired and hopeful that one day they will return to their rightful homes. But yeah, it's just very grounding and emotional, to be honest, to be able to touch them and be with them here and be with everyone who's here for FestPac as well. And it's a beautiful day to have the Micronesia Festival as well, which is just a community that I feel needs to be uplifted. But yeah.
Oh, si Diyos masi. Okay, wait. Okay, dispensa latizu. And I leko na kumekwento si Riley para dos. Hukeke sanga na mapotge because she's mapotge. She's talking for two. But I totally forgot that they did their interview together. So Hungan, si Riley Tactingfongs and si Olivia Anderson. Hungan. But si Diyos masi no hamzuna dos. Thank you for both of your words. And Hungan, gef pogu na haani. And then that was, yeah, I mean, it was, yeah. Gefpagu na haani na man samuru hit. Gefpagu na haani na man natibu hit. Hungan, definitely. And I think it was, I think I liked the way that sort of the Latte became something that Chamorros could focus on because, Chamorros definitely, there's so many things that distract and, that Chamorros can focus on in our lives because, and so the Latte became something that the community attending FestPac and the community that was in Hawaii could focus on. And so you had hundreds of Chamorros and then perhaps thousands across FestPac just making their way to the Bishop Museum to see the Latte. And so it was an important gathering place. Like you had kind of the constant kulu going. The constant kulu going. Okay, now what I want to do now is, so one thing that was, before we get into sort of the final range of interviews and statements, I want to give a moment because one of the things that was most beautiful about it was when groups of dancers, small and large, got together to surround the Latte with their voices and their songs. And so, the Latte ceremony was originally sort of the Chamorro community in Hawaii organizing it. But when the Guam delegation heard that this was happening, Master of Chamorro Dance, Eileen Meno, really insisted that the Guam dancers, the performing artists, they really wanted to be there as a part of it as well. And then Heidi Kenga with the Kulturan Chamorro and the dancers from Long Beach, California, they came out too because, as I said, Magwaifi Kulu, the Kulu has been blown. And so people whose hearts are open, people whose hearts are always open for the cause and the needs of the people, they hear it, they feel the need. I have to show up, I have to be there. The cause of our people is here. And so it was beautiful because statements were made, speeches were given, small ceremonies and large ceremonies happened. And then all of these performers and dancers and chanters gathered around the latte and then sang a few different numbers, a few different songs. And so here is one of them. Oh, yef pogu gugu. Oi. Oh man, again. Wow. Mm. You could feel it. You could absolutely feel something in the air. And so I want to, the last, there's four more voices that I want to hear from. And now, one voice that we want to hear from now, because one thing that people have talked about and that a lot of people have asked questions about is what is the future of these latte, but also what is the future of the massive collection of artifacts that these latte were part of when they were brought over to Hawaii, which is more than 10,000 pieces from Micronesia. And so I want to share now the voice from somebody, a PhD student, Alba Fernandez, who is doing her research in Spain, in Madrid, in an anthropology museum, which also has a significant collection from the Marianas, sort of a wonderful collection from the 1800s. And so is working as well in terms of getting access for those of us in the Marianas to that collection, working perhaps in terms of getting us loans so that we can exhibit some of the beautiful pieces that they have, which were taken for a global exhibit that happened in Spain in the 1800s. And so we hear now her thoughts, sort of as somebody who is researching and studying, and then also helping us in the Marianas on a similar project in Europe.
Whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Half a day. My name is Alba Ferrandis Gaudens, and I'm a PhD student from Spain researching Chamorro Museum collections in Spanish museums. And I was very fortunate to be able to attend this Latte ceremony, beautiful Latte ceremony this morning. I think it was, having this opportunity to bring the community out here and be able to chant, to spend some time with the Latte Stones is extremely important, not just for the community, but also for the Latte Stones, because the Latte Stones, they really, they having the community out here brings back the life to the Latte Stones. So I think that was one of the most important aspects of this ceremony today. And I think it's really good that the Bishop Museum has decided to do a more appropriate display of the Latte Stones outdoors where people can engage with them, where not just, chamorros from Guam, but chamorros that live in the diaspora out here in Hawaii, but also elsewhere in the U.S. can engage, come at any point and spend some time with the ancestors, with the Saina, and leave their offerings as they've done today. Yeah, and I think it's, hopefully this is just the beginning of a longer process in which we get the Latte Stones to return to Guam and the CNMI. And yeah, thank you very much. Si Jus Masi.
Hunggaran. What I love to hear there is that, in the past, museums, the idea, of course, is that artifacts and things that go into museums, they're lifeless. But now, we tend to think we think about them as, that we communities, and that you had to kind of disconnect them from communities and then give them this kind of petri dish, put them under a slide life in a museum, scientific life. But now sort of you can activate artifacts sort of by keeping them connected to their communities, right? And so it's a very different idea of museums. It's part of sort of decolonizing museums. And it's important. It's much more real. Love it. And so now I wanna give a chance. Oh, and I'm glad because so I want to also share the thoughts of Tori Laitila, who is he is the curator, the textile curator. Hold on, I'm gonna load up his interview right here. Tori is a textile curator at the Honolulu Museum of Art, and sort of he is Chamorro. If you know Trini Torres or Abu Rose Defunta, sort of he is their nephew here on Guam. And so, his wife made this lovely lei here, and then I joined, I was so busy taking pictures and then filming and then talking to people and answering questions at the ceremony that Malefadzunai, I didn't bring anything to offer in ceremony for myself. And so I was so gracious and so grateful, excuse me, Dispensazo. I was so grateful that when then Tori approached me, and then he had estigo of Donkuluds and Bunituna lei, and he said that his wife had made this, and then he asked me, he said, which latte should we put it on? And it was beautiful, and then I looked around and I said, the Ipao latte over here, everyone keeps putting stuff on the tasa for the Rhoda latte because it's so large. Let's go over here. And then while everything was going on, I just said something quietly while he stood with me to the ancestors, and it was I was so grateful for him to that I was able to share in that offering and that small ceremony with him. And so as a curator and somebody who's worked in Hawaii, worked with the Bishop Museum and worked on these issues, I was grateful that he also shared his thoughts on these issues.
I'm Apade and Aloha. I'm Tor Laitila, Familian Taurus, Taitagui, De Leon Guerrero, and Borja from Mongmong and Toto. I did go to Cathedral Elementary School, which is not there anymore, but I work as the curator of textiles and historic arts of Hawaii at the Honolulu Museum of Art. Um, I got contacted by the staff at Bishop Museum to come out and help work on the Latte stones in preparation for their reinstallation. And I'm very grateful for that opportunity. You know, were neglected on the grounds because they weren't cataloged, they weren't in the system. As things that aren't in the system get forgotten, and the community here came together, and I think kind of spurred on by FestPac in Honolulu, and brought attention. So now they're placed in a prominent location, and hopefully something else will happen with them, whether they return to the Marianas, or maybe some of them stay here. We'll see what happens, but I'm glad that they're being cared for and looked after, and it's a place where we can come pay our respects to our ancestors.
Sidus Masi, Sidus Masi. Hungen, and I'm always happy to meet other Chamorros that work in museums. Hungen. Hungen, and while I was out there for FestPac, Tori invited me to go and visit his museum, and oh man, it was so fun. He took me and we spent the afternoon nerding out in his museum, Gofzao. And so for the last two interviews, want to talk to, we're going to listen to two people now. Because everything was, FestPac is just kind of kulangon pakzunai, mega masusesedi, everything is happening. People were moving around, going back and forth between the Bishop Museum, the Honolulu Convention Center, and so on. There was other people that I wanted to talk to, but I wasn't able to at the Bishop Museum itself. So I caught up with two other people that I wanted to interview later that day at the Guma, the festival hut for Guam. And so I want to listen to somebody. I want us to listen to Nita Ekongok si Roman de la Cruz, who is somebody who has been, Roman is of course part of Whakai, infamous now, or for the revival that he spearheaded. Seems like a mixed metaphor. Spearheaded. He has slingstone headed, because he has been sort of integral in helping revive slinging as sort of a cultural industry, getting it into the schools, getting it, just reviving it and making it interesting and cool again. And so he's been part of that. And so, he got to, as part of, he was there for FestPac. He got to see the Hornbostel collection, which features thousands of slingstones. And so, he was there for the ceremony for the Latte. And so I asked him sort of, his thoughts on seeing the Latte, but also sort of the larger collection.
Okay, after today's Latte Stone ceremony at the Bishop Museum, was a really interesting one because, of course, very emotional. Initially, very easy to get offended, but I think it was really enlightening, understanding it's very difficult for our artifacts to be away from home. But even worse than them being away from home is them being away from home and never being activated for what they really can do. So, of course, I think I'm half torn between wanting to bring these artifacts home or wanting them to be monuments for our people over here. So it's a thought process that we'd have to consider. Of course, if they're going to be monuments for people over here, they can't just be. They're not going to do anything in boxes or behind closed doors. And I think those Latte stones, as well as we think that they're taking care of them, they speak better when they're standing as they should be. So for them to be all the way over here, maybe the first step here is let's put them together and show people how they were done, and maybe we might find some value in having them overseas with those sling stones that sit, those thousands of sling stones and artifacts that sit in the back. maybe by bringing them to the front, maybe we won't be so in a rush to keep them, to bring them into a safe place. So I think if maybe they help us to find out that they're doing work over here, then I think we can elevate our thinking. And it's really great to see that the interactivity between the Hawaiian cultural movement and the Chamorro cultural movement within the context of the Pacific Island conversation. Tremendous, unreal to see Chamorros from abroad all just come together, rally around fittingly in a circle, and just like Festback did on Guam, looking forward to see what Festback does for the cultural to be a part of it, and can't wait for everybody else to be a part of it too.
Biba, biba, biba. All right, Sidus Masi Roman. Wait. Kailangan timatotsoy Wi-Fi. Shoot. Último na. Momento na gihinanauta para este. We're now at the last point sort of in our journey. We have one more voice that we want to listen to. And so as part of the ceremony, the organizers invited one person to come and to share their thoughts and to to provide background on how all of this had started, and to kind of basically to give meaning and importance to everything that was going on. And so that person was Senora Erlinda Naputi, who is the director for the Jotenkidzu Public Library in Saipan. And so Senora Erlinda, she was part of the program that I was in, along with there were 6 of us total, with others from around the Pacific, the Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Museum Institute back in 2022, where we were not the first people to find the Latte. Chamorros had been asking about the Latte. As Alyssa said earlier in this episode, Chamorros had been asking about the Latte for decades. And then even when the Latte were no longer on display and were put behind the Bishop Museum, Chamorros were still finding the Latte and then asking about them, why they were back there, what was going to happen to them, why weren't they up? Were they going to go home, and so on? But when we went out there, when we went out there in 2022, we had our own little ceremony as a group, the 6 of us from the Marianas, si Senora Linda, Nicole de la Dueñas, Alyssa, myself, Tyler Warwick from the CNMI, and then Archie Acoste from the CNMI as well. We had our own ceremony in which we basically, said, what? Thank you for, thank you for watching them. Thank you for keeping them here, but we want them back. We don't know how long it's gonna take, but we're gonna get them back. And so, Senora Linda was invited to kind of give that framing, and she spoke at the ceremony. And so I wanted to kind of have her perspective just on sort of what it means, especially, what it meant in terms of the Latte, this ceremony being a place in which Chamorros from across the Marianas could come together as well.
Senora, para mandaña di Latte, hape sinintemo ko ba sinintemo pa hinasongo pa kalang mandaña von kalang numagaga esti benefita pa un Marianas.
No, Senor Miguel, sinenteku pagu gi ceremonia si Latte gi sa Bishop Museum. Usenti na kulang tutuhonta para tafandanya kumuuno na Marianas.
ginin Guam za ni Norte Marianas. Bonito naman danya hi za tali ito di manyeluta man motu para ta celebra i Latte. Za untuk fa bonito niya masisti i ginin Guam, ginin Saipan, zan gat ginin Estados Unidos, zan ginin Hawaii no. Esti Latte i Larry Stone. Ginigi Hawaii anafandanya todo hi ni Chamorro za ta celebra i atsota i Latte ni simbo para i Marianas sa itaha gahizu nezi na otsu sa nunli Latte Stone gituhon gi kareta sticker gigima o masaya hofa na lugar sa monho sa manlio Latte Stone untungwa nagwahat sa Moro anon li kareta dyan sticker Latte Stone nitinesita pondi ko guam pat sa ipan sa untungwa na sa Moro gay kareta pues an monho loki para guma amigo para amiga più fatta guaha display put Latte Stone sa inigi hoji inigi hofa mu kulan izota how do you call it izota no symbol para itoto sa Moro za bonito este pogo i mandanya hitodo za ta celebra pogo i Latte Stone ceremonia sa untunga na hogo unu senyor Bevacqua Guau si Elisa Santos si Nicole de la Dueñas si Archa Hostes and si Tyler Warwick no 2 años animan matu za talihi este atso za talihi mono ni man mapopo lugen na tempo lo bonito bidanya i Bishop Museum sa manalihi na marespeta i hafa costumbreta i kulturata zan especialmente i afa izota Latte Stone za istige na bonito na ma-move mo na sa mana mas bonito lugar niya za sinya hochu siya loki na tautauta gini gi za Hawaii pa manu gato siya gi Estados Unidos no man matu mo gi za mali na gwa loki didi pidoso niha gini gi za Bishop Museum lo bonito za go uli na esige tutuhonta patafandanya kumuuno na Marianas zan sige loki uno tutuhonta patali sa tagiha mo na i Bishop Museum zo matsogi hafa dinansi ang giniling yan na zota pus za malago hitoti pus tafan manoy pagon gin malago siya pero mapega hagi Bishop Museum pus por favor pwede mon manahi lugar kampu galumi museum zo ma display hafa izota munga man mapega hagi galumi ti kahun zo fan mapega lebo galum kahun za taza tumungo angin malago siya pamatsogi hafa dinansi ire umananalo toti or managwahan lugar zo maliin ni tauto hafa siya izota ginin ni Mariana zan man hoji hit na tauto
Si Zeus Mase hunggan foti tinay sinanganya tadong lokwi sinanganya si senyora hunggan zan bonito esti sinanganya bonito na hinitsum esti na episode no sinanganya si Zeus Mase senyora Erlinda Podeno isinangan mo. It's a beautiful message to sort of end on because when you think about it, the Latte, after the Latte sort of being out of the Marianas for so long, but then the Latte sort of gathering so many Chamorros together, calling so many Chamorros together, and especially so many Chamorros from so many different corners of the Pacific, and then so many different corners from the United States, because there was Chamorros from the Marianas, from Guam, from Hawaii, and then from across the diaspora as well. And so that was more than anything, sort of one of the most beautiful parts about this, is that as Chamorros were reconnecting and seeking that means to reconnect to their ancestors, is that they were also reconnecting to each other, is that it was a space in which Chamorros were becoming unified as well. Gifinot niya si Señora un Marianas, hunggan. Un tautau, un Marianas, hunggan. Sidus Masino Hamzo todos, thank you for all of you that were tuning in. Estigi ifinakpo estin episode Fanachu, adios. Estiki mana lihitatlu.